for coming. We're so grateful that you're here. And we want to assure you that we are poets, but tonight we'll be reading prose. For the last couple of years, Denise and I have been having illegal quantities of fun writing essays together. And this is the first time that we've been able to share them with an audience beyond ourselves. So we write long essays. Tonight we're going to read a shorter part of a very long essay called The Gaze, G-A-Z-E. So we're going to read the first 4 sections, and then we're going to read the conclusion. And if you want to know what happens in the middle, this essay will be out in Arts and Letters in a couple of months. The Gaze. Check out.
One of my first jobs was as a checkout girl at Almax. If you had a nice ass, the boys were more likely to bag for you. That was just the way it was. The older cashiers were sometimes called bags behind their backs. Managers had to direct the teenagers to bag for these women to keep the lines moving. Almax's former name was Piggly Wiggly, and in 1994, Victoria Holdings bought the company, busted the unions, and got rid of the full-timers. But back in 1979, Almax was a good place to work, especially for a high school student like me, and the other women and I put up with the lectures. Though I was radicalized, I was also practical and knew Almax was better than fast food restaurants or mills. Workers at most supermarkets now don't have overtime or health care like we did. There were no women managers back then, though Bernadette worked in the front office, stacking the money with rubber bands and writing our paychecks. Some of us cashiers complained to her about the managers who seemed to do nothing but walk around with clipboards checking us out. Management and the meat room concocted some juvenile scheme to rate women shoppers. Code 10 in dairy meant there was an attractive woman shopping for milk. This was the reign of Bo Derrick's 10 and her flesh-colored bathing suit and white woman cornrows. Code 10 in aisle 7. The men snickered and darted from aisle to aisle as though the rest of us were clueless. They're gross, we told Bernadette. She was a bag who had escaped her fate. Now the managers were dependent on her. Cashiers gathered around her in the break room with sandwiches and yogurt. Bernadette said we had to learn to ignore the men and concentrate on the important things, like making sure we aligned our dollars with the president's heads all facing the same way. Don't be like Stuffy here, she said, pointing to me. It doesn't do me any good if you're fast but you're messy. Flatten out those bills. One truth was the boys our age, we felt, were being corrupted by the men. If they were always checking out the customers, what about us? If they were always checking out all the cashiers for whom they were bagging, how would these boys ever fall in love with just one? And what about giggly, flirty Roxanne, who said she liked being checked out, even by the manager, older than her father? She said we were just all uptight and chewed a pack of Trident instead of eating one little stick after another, then spit out the whole wad when it was her time to go back to the register. Another truth is that a lot of us both hated and loved being checked out. I longed for the right boy to check me out. The rest of the supermarket, our town, the state, the whole world fading away until he saw only me. The last fall I worked there, a man called me at home to ask me if he could take me to Almax's Christmas party. He identified himself as Lucas. I couldn't tell which person he was from his voice. I stocked the shelves, he said, sounding shy. Okay, I said, not knowing which man would arrive at my door. Lucas was one of the nice guys at Almax, I learned. He was 2 years older than I was, and his sister was a feminist. He'd driven Bernadette home when her car broke down, and he thought the butchers were pigs. Why hadn't I ever noticed him before? And how did he notice me? Was I so self-conscious and protective of my face, my body, that I only saw the harassers around me? You always smiled, he said, when I bought a box of crackers for my break. The cashiers were supposed to smile at everyone. Lucas must have known that. But I've since learned that men, even the good ones, take the paid-for smile from a woman as genuine. Rubberneck.
In 1997, I got my first job as a sales clerk in the women's sportswear department at Lamont's. It was either retail or waitressing for me. One a fixed hourly with no commission, the other a base rate dependent on tips. I like to play it safe, like to know precisely what my take-home pay would be before I tore open the grainy blue check on the 2nd and 4th Fridays of the month. It was my senior year. It was pre-9/11 and post-grunge. I still put on nylons wearing little white gloves, the way my mother taught me to prevent runs. I graduated and I started my 9 to 5, and later that summer, Princess Diana died. It was August. The air conditioner whimpered. Sadness spilled from the headlines. The women at work heated their lean cuisines in the break room microwave oven. They sat at the table, its surface perpetually sticky with salt and grime, pouring over yesterday's news. It's the death of beauty, they said, their eyes roving her lovely face, their fingers grazing her glossy body. Because I was the youngest one, the novice one, the only one among them who had never been kissed well or jilted badly, who had never, among other things, borne a child or cursed at the top of her lungs, I had to be the one to wait on Cindy Reinhardt, the local celebrity, the TV personality from Northwest Afternoon who made animated predictions at 3 o'clock about the plots of soap operas like Days of Our Lives and One Life to Live. The women I worked with lived for these shows. They set their VCRs to tape them while they were gone 8 hours a day, making just a tad above minimum wage. Larry, our boss, would yell up the stairs, "CR approaching ladies' fashions." That's when Gloria pointed at me. She was gap-toothed and jean-clad, the only one who worked out back, unloading trucks and smoking her daisy chain of menthol cigarettes. "You're on, kid," she'd grin, and they all cracked up. My face blanched and Tammy patted my hand. "You'll do fine, but for God's sake, you gotta stop the rubbernecking." I didn't know what she meant. At home with my dictionary, I looked it up. The act of gawking at something, particularly something startling or obscene. Cindy Reinhardt summoned me to her dressing room. Her scent was half Jack Daniels, half White Diamonds, with a little whiff of the Marlboro Man. "I don't do none of that handmaiden shit," Esmeralda had said, and the other women nodded their heads in agreement. Cindy Reinhardt was trying on a bikini from the juniors department again. When she made me fasten the clasps, she saw how my fingers trembled. "It's cute," she slurred, "the way that you're so shy." I tried and I tried not to rubberneck, but Cindy Reinhardt had enlarged her breasts to the size of volleyballs, then darkened them in a tanning bed. She joked she couldn't even jog anymore, or she might give herself a concussion. I tried and I tried not to rubberneck at the V-shaped crease that formed between them, not just a line in the flesh, but an actual pocket, deep enough to hold her wallet and her keys. "I'm going on another cruise to Mexico," she said. "What do you think about these?" They were the tiniest jean shorts I had ever seen, paste-up blue and tattered on purpose. I tried and I tried not to rubberneck, but I could see the staples in her stomach from where she had it tucked, the long lines of faulty sewing that pinstriped the skin of her thighs. "They should give me a punch card at that plastic surgeon's," she laughed, then turned serious all of a sudden, strutting back and forth in the too small space. I tried my best to avert my eyes. "I think in this life, if you really want something, you have to go after it, no holds barred." "Do you mean like being on television?" I asked. She shook her head and guffawed, stumbled a little in her platform heels. "Oh, bless your heart," she said, wiping her eyes. I didn't see what was so funny. "Take a look at this tag," she said, lifting the thin white strip from her bright red bikini bottoms. "Can you read what this says?" "Zero." "That's fucking right. I've waited my whole life to be a zero, and now I am."